Hi, I just wanted to make a video talking a little bit about socialization, and I just wish to clarify some things because I realized that I was maybe I was a bit unclear in my previous video. I want to say that I don't believe it's natural for women to, build their identity around focusing all this time and energy on men, and I don't believe it's natural for men to build that time and energy around other men and their abilities and their interests. I think this is highly constructed. This is socialization, and it's entirely structural and not something nature given. And it's also socialization I want to talk about now, as I wish to touch a bit upon my first experience with the relationship world, the realm of intimacy, where I feel that socialization is expressed a lot, because oftentimes when you venture into a heterosexual relationship, you can see the toxic combination sometimes of the female socialization and the male socialization. And I'm not saying that everyone has received the socialization in the same way, or that everyone has received it, but it's something that exists in our culture, which means that women and men are met with certain expectations on how to behave. I can say for myself, I'm socialized to be a doormat. I'm socialized to not have boundaries, to not feel myself, because it's always about what the other person wants, and I have to accommodate to this. And this was very much expressed when I ventured into my first relationship, which was when I was 17, and it was with a guy, and it was when I was an exchange student in New Zealand. And this guy was a good friend to begin with. We got along so well, and we had heaps of fun. And I actually had a crush on a schoolmate. The other guy was also a schoolmate, but my feelings weren't returned, not until a lot later, and I think still not in the same way. But so I guess I felt stressed because I hadn't been with anyone yet. I hadn't had anything physical with anyone yet. And I was thinking to myself that, when I get home after this year, I go back to my small provincial town where I'll go, 2 years again without kissing anyone, without hooking up with anyone, without having anything love relation in my life, because the selection is just not so big when you live in a small town, and I had never had something with someone in that small town, so I expected to not be successful, to keep not being successful in this realm, where I was situated and in the space I was in. But so yeah, because my feelings weren't returned with my crush, and because I felt that there was a pressure in the culture to have relations, to have tried intimacy, to try sex and hooking up and all these kind of things, I eventually agreed to go into a relationship with this person. And for the most time it was fine, but looking back over my shoulder, I can see that most of the time it really wasn't good, because I wasn't in love with this person. I loved him a lot, We got on so well. But it was always a returning conflict, this thing about not respecting my own boundaries and not setting them and not having them respected, There were different incidents that both are related to rape and violence and just not respecting boundaries in general. It was never very, very severe, the rape and the violence. He hit me once. I think he had an anxiety attack, and I remember reading about it in my diary where I was like, oh yeah, poor guy. He felt so bad that he hit me, where it's like, what about me? How, what do I feel about being hit? But I was so disconnected from my own self at that point of time. Like I had no ego, it was always about feeling the other person out and their feelings before myself, And with the rape thing, it was, him not respecting that I said no to have sex. He did eventually stop when I got really, really firm about it, but I had to say it a couple of times, and this happened a couple of times as well. So it was really, not okay. And at one time he held my neck, around my neck, when we were walking through town, and it was really, really uncomfortable. I felt like a dog, and I had told him that I didn't want him to do it. I wanted him to stop, and that it was dangerous because we weren't allowed to have any romantic or sexual relations with the organization that I was there with. If we met some members of this organization or some people who knew them, I could be sent home to Denmark, and I obviously wasn't interested in that, But in general, it was a good relationship. It was just that I went into the relationship because I got pressured. He didn't stop to make a move, and I wasn't able to feel within myself that it was okay to say no. He kept calling and sending me text messages, and I just I didn't know what to do. It was so difficult, and I also felt the pressure to have a boyfriend and to not disappoint someone whom I actually felt deserved my love, because he had given me love, I felt, as opposed to this other person who didn't appreciate my love. He was a person who appreciated it, and he was a really good person, I felt. So how dared I not be in love with him and not returning his feelings? I remember hating myself for this and having such a bad conscience about this. And after the year had gone, we were still together, and we arranged for him to come after half a year. And we broke up in the meantime, but I told him he was still, of course, welcome to come, and he was to live at my family's place for a period of time. But we arranged between us that since we are not together, he had to find another place to live after a certain time. It was a working holiday visa kind of thing that he was on, or was it? Yeah, something like that. Yeah. But then he kept pushing the time, and my parents didn't respect my boundaries and the boundaries that the arrangement that we had made. This is where you also see my socialization, that my background doesn't support the boundaries that I actually set, that no, I don't want to keep living with my ex-boyfriend forever and ever. We have actually, between the two of us, made the arrangement that he is gonna be there for, not a very long time, but of course he can be there in the beginning, and also to find a place to live, but he wasn't even looking. But my mom was saying he can stay as long as he wants, although we had made a different arrangement, and although that completely crossed my boundaries. But eventually he was harassing her so much because I didn't have time to hang out with him all the time because I went to high school, so he would go to the kitchen to hang out with her all the time and just like harass her in such a weird way that it really became too much in the end for her. And she asked me what to do, and I said, sorry, my boundaries have already been crossed. But yeah, this was just to say that it's okay to say no to guys for women. It's okay to reject people. I also never complained that this person didn't like me. I don't think we ever talked about it back then, but I never tried to push something that wasn't there. So it's okay for women to not have sex they don't want. And if you're a young girl who feel like you should be having sex and should be having relationships with guys, don't worry. You're not busy. There's this cultural pressure to have a boyfriend or girlfriend, and to have sex. And, if you're 18 and haven't had sex, you're really weird, But fuck that, this is bullshit, Do what you want when you really want it, and when it's not there, it's not there, And don't ever feel pressured to go into a relation with someone that you don't want, Don't feel obliged, You're not obliged to give someone sex or love, Focus on you. The other one also is better off with someone who's really attracted to them, So this was my history of, my socialization being a disadvantage to me in my first coming into the realm of love and sex when I was young. So there you go. Thank you for listening. I hope you got something out of it. Bye.